he asked. You're not lying again? I swallow down my guilt and shame and shake my head, for his sake. No. A long, tense silence unfurls, and I can hear the thud of my own heartbeat louder than anything else in the room. I realize neither of us are daring to breathe at this moment, though for entirely different reasons. He presses his lips together and frowns deeply before he works himself up to speak again. Do you... He pauses, looking a little sick. Do you miss him? More than I can ever begin to tell you. No, I say, lying without hesitation. Just glad to be left alone, to be honest. It's not as if he's treated me very well. The corners of his mouth twitch as he attempts to smile. A sad smile. You don't have to lie to me, Hermione. I'm not. I say perhaps a little too quickly. He made my life hell, Ron, honestly. That's why I ended it. Whoever knew I'd become so adept at lying. I was always so rubbish at it before. Well, it seems Lucius taught me many, many things. And I won't feel guilty about it. I won't. Ignorance is bliss. There's something I've learned. That's something I've learned. And it won't take away one bit of comfort Ron can take from this whole situation. And it was me who chose to end it, and not Lucius. He closed his eyes for a moment and let out a sigh before he looks at me again. His expression clearing like the sky as the clouds move aside for the sun. Well, he says, trying to struggle for what he's going to say. Well, at least that's... He takes a deep breath. At least you'll be left alone now. I nod. Left alone. All alone. So lonely I could die. Every moment of every day. I say nothing. I just nod. You can... His words are like dripping tap, stopping and starting. You can move on, you know? Look forward to when you can get out of here. Move on. I could almost laugh. It's so sad. And wait a minute. When I get out of here. What do you mean? I ask, frowning. Neither of us. Well, I take a deep breath, trying to get a hold of myself. I might as well try to say it. It's not as if keeping it quiet will make it go away. We're not getting out of here, Ron, I say heavily. He smiles, a strange smile. There's no joy in it. You haven't heard about my parents, then? He asks sadly. My guts twist themselves for him. I know what he's talking about. I know exactly what he's talking about. But I didn't know that he knew as well. You've got to remember how much they love you, I say quickly. They've done so much to save you already. I must know. That must show how much you mean to them. Not enough. He says, his voice resigned with sadness. I don't know what to say. He reaches up and rubs my arm awkwardly. What Avery and Bellatrix tried to do to Jenny didn't go well with them, apparently. He says quietly, his cheeks flushing. They hurt you that night, too. A sad smile remains plastered on his lips. But Mum and Dad only tried sort to rebel when Jenny got involved, didn't they? He mutters. That's the truth of it, isn't it? I shift awkwardly. Ron's always felt like the spare wheel of his family. I know that. And now this whole thing has only made it 1,000 times worse. I shake my head, closing his eyes. He shakes his head, closing his eyes for a moment before he looks at me again. Doesn't matter, he says. waving away all the pain and agony he must be feeling for my sake. What matters is that you know who doesn't need you anymore. So they might let you go. Let me go. The words sink in. Slowly. Let me go. Oh, if it were only things were only that simple. The only day I'd ever leave this place alive is if Lucius decides to set me free. And if he does, then he'll die immediately. I know that he will. But despite all that, perhaps he would let me go now. He's already stopped himself from setting me free in an attempt to keep me safe. He's already stopped himself from seeing me in an attempt to keep me safe. Perhaps he'd go one step further to protect me. Perhaps I've taught him something, after all. But if he were to let me go, then I wouldn't be able to leave. I wouldn't, because I'd know exactly what would happen to him if I did. God, could things get any more complicated? I don't think that means they're gonna let me go, I say hesitantly. He lifts his arms, as if he might be going out to reach to me, but he changes his mind. They might, he says. Who knows? If they don't need you anymore, they could easily just obliviate you and set you free. I consider this for a moment. Maybe that could be a way out for us. Perhaps Lucius could convince Voldemort to wipe my memories and let me go. That way he wouldn't have to kill me. He wouldn't have to live with the knowledge that he killed the only person he'd ever come close to caring for. Would I really prefer to live like that? To have no memory of my entire time here? To live without ever knowing what happened during these months and months of my life? And to not have any knowledge of him? Perhaps it would be merciful, really, to be able to forget everything that ever happened between us. All the agony he's caused me. I shake my head. It's all immaterial, because, if anything, Voldemort will want Lucius to prove his loyalty by killing me. I know it. He sent Avery here for a reason, didn't he? Have you ever considered that they might just dispose of me? I asked gently, his mouth twisting for a second, before he shakes his head. I'm sure they won't, Hermione, he says, his voice barely audible. No one could ever... Who would be able to... He trails off, but I know what he's going to say. My heart swells so much with love for him that I almost feel faint with it. After all this time, after all I've done, he still cares. Ron, my Ron. I stride across the room and throw my arms around his neck, making a small, suppressed squeak noise as I do so. He stiffens in my arms for a moment, and for a long while I wonder whether he's going to hug me back. But his arms wind heavily around my waist, holding me close to him as he lets out a huge sigh on my shoulders. And I smile in sheer relief, tears stinging in my eyes, and I can't help them roll down my cheek, dampening onto the shoulder of his rose. Before I know where I am, I'm sobbing. Shh, it's all right, he says, his voice very thick. It's over now. He won't bother you any more. You're safe. I've got you. I cling to him, holding him so tightly it hurts, so tightly that we could almost be one being. But it doesn't heal that yawning, gaping emotionlessness I can feel deep inside of me. I only wish that it could. Things would be so much simpler if it did. It seems like only 5 minutes later when Bellatrix comes to collect Ron. She sweeps into the room, one thin, pale hand resting on her hip, and she clutches her wand, pointing it at Ron. Time's up, Weasley, she says, her words clipped. Come along. I watch in silence as he allows her to escort him from the room. He doesn't say anything in the manners of a goodbye. But as he leaves, he most definitely smiles at me. I take that smile and use it to light a flame under my heart. The door shuts behind him and I find myself alone again. I sigh, pressing my cold fingertips to my eyes. I'm so tired. Perhaps if I could just go to sleep early. and go without sleep like you always do. Did you do what I asked? My hand drops from my eyes so quickly as if my fingers have turned to stone. Oh my god, I just read the wrong thing. Did you do as I asked? My hand drops from my eyes so quickly as if my fingers have turned to stone. I know that voice. I know it as well as my own. I stopped breathing just because it is your own. Sorry. I stopped breathing just so that I can hear what he's saying. No, Bellatrix replies in a short, and clipped and uncaring. Bellatrix replies is short, clipped, and uncaring. I forgot. Sorry. For God's sake, my order was perfectly clear. Perfectly simple, excuse me. What does it matter if she's fed or not? She snaps. I doubt we'll be needing her around much longer anyways. A long silence. I know exactly how to take that comment. I can't believe Ron's optimism that I might be set free. I'm going to die. Not only that, but I'm going to die soon. Not necessarily. Yes, necessarily. I've got to accept it. Lucius himself will have to do it. And do you really think he'll be able to do that? Perhaps. Lucius mutters. Bellatrix gives what sounds like a derisive snort. What are you staring at, Weasley? Lucius says quietly. My heart stops and starts. Nothing. Ron replies suddenly. Nothing. And so I breathe again. See you at dinner then, Lucius, Bellatrix says coldly. I look forward to it. Lucius replies, his voice an icy breeze. 2 pairs of footsteps move down a corridor. It's a long time for me to wait. I wait and wait for almost 5 minutes straight, waiting for him either to walk away or come back to me. The door clicks, then swings open. My heart leaps 1,000 feet as he steps into the room, refusing to deflate even as I take in his rigid expression. I can't help it. His eyes rest on my unturned face for the briefest of moments before he turns to point his wand at my bedside table, conjuring a plate of food, a sandwich, a bowl of soup, a glass of pumpkin juice, and a piece of bread that looks like what looks like a tiny bit of jam. I don't think he's ever given me so much to eat before. Usually it's just some bread or soup and a piece of fruit if I'm lucky. His eyes rest on my face again. You need to eat, he says curtly before he leaves. He turns to leave again. Wait! I say quickly. He exhales sharply before he turns to face me again. His lips a thin line. His eyes rest on mine. It's like a physical pain. Yes. He asks, his voice clipped. I open my mouth. My throat closes up and I can't make any words leave it. Not that I know what to say anyways. He raises an eyebrow at me, cold, frozen, just like it used to be once upon a time. But whether it's a front or not, I don't know. He lets out a sigh and turns to the door. What if if you've got nothing to say, then I've got no reason to stay. So wait, no, I mean, my face flushes with heat. You haven't been here in a while. And for a long while he doesn't turn around. I shift my bare feet, rubbing one against the other nervously. He turns to face me eventually, his expression blank and unreadable. It's what we decided, Mudblood, he muttered. It's over between us. Or have you forgotten already? You decided, I say hotly. And no, I haven't forgotten. I just didn't know that you'd forbidden yourself from even seeing me. His mouth twists and his head rises as if he's preparing himself for battle. Try not to be such a child, he says, his voice like a cruel cutting knife. You don't need me to look after you. He pauses. You never did. The last statement came as little more than a murmur.